We should all be wearing shades.
I don't have it. Okay, so my friend Alex.
Really? Cool.
I would rock those.
I would.
That'll work. That'll work.
We're looking pretty fly.
We are looking pretty fly. Hello.
Welcome to Toonami Faithful fans. This is editorial writer CJ Maffers with editor-in-chief Sketch, and we're with a very, very special guest, fresh off the Fooly Cooly 2 and 3 panel.
Hello. Hi, my name is Allegra Clark, and I am the voice of Jinyu in Fooly Cooly Progressive.
I'm really hoping you're enjoying Anime Expo like a lot of people seem to be.
I am, actually. You know, this is my first Anime Expo and my very first day at Anime Expo. So it's certainly an experience. Like, first day I go, just have fun on this panel. I'm like, okay, yeah, great.
So I'll start off with, how was the feeling of seeing the entire panel room with all those people there? And it's been like this in Anime Expo for the past 2 years, but just you being your first and being able to see all those people, here to hear, all kinds of news about Fooly Cooly, show that obviously you really like. How did that feel, seeing all those people?
Oh my God, I walked into the room and I knew it was a big room, but until I stepped out onto that stage, I had no idea that it was going to be that packed. So actually stepping out for the first time was very, humbling, overwhelming, humbling, exciting. It was so many feelings at the same time. Like, wow, there are a lot of people and they're all really excited about Fooly Cooly. I hope they have fun like I'm having fun. I hope they've enjoyed it like I've enjoyed it. So.
Right, first a silly question.
Yeah.
How is it that Jinyu is so dependable in so many ways, but she just can't wash the darn dishes?
You know what? It's because she's dependable at being like a stoic protector and guardian. But when it comes to basic household things, she's just like, nope, I don't know how to people. We called her, when we were recording, Michael always said she's RoboCop.
Yeah, she looks like it.
She's very RoboCop, so she's very good at she'll protect you. She'll catch the falling car. Is this a spoiler? Okay, Chad?
I mean, this won't be airing before 6 anyway, so.
I'm not talking about 6 anyway because I ain't spoiling you guys.
No. We can wait what? We can wait 2 hours or so.
You can wait. God, at this point, yeah, it's close too. I'm really excited for it too. Yeah. So she'll protect you when the car is falling. She will make sure that you're okay. She'll protect her sweet children, her sweet, crazy children. But just generally having people skills, nope. I was like, I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm sorry she survived. Like, that being one of the first lines that I recorded on that show.
I love that line.
That was in the audition too, so I sort of knew, but then we just dove right into that scene. We had just prior to that scene, I think we just had the cigarette smoking moment, which is also funny because I don't smoke, so it was like, how do I yeah. They're like, no, Allegra, you have to actually exhale for longer than that. I'm like, really? Why? Why would you do that? Those are toxins. That's bad for you.
Why the maid outfit?
Why not? It's a maid cafe.
That is true.
She's got to dress the part.
So for those who might not have been able to see any part of the panel, I don't know if it was live streamed or anything like that.
I think it was, actually.
Feel free to tell those who might not have caught it how Fooly Cooly, the first series, kind of spoke to you, and how just being able to be now part of the sequel series of Fooly Cooly Progressive, how much of a full circle thing for you that was.
Yeah, no. So I think I was 15 years old when the first season of Fooly Cooly aired. So I was very much in the age range of people who would be sort of relate to the show. And I didn't necessarily know how to articulate it at the time, except to say that it's very funny and it resonates with me. So, 15 years later now, I know I'm aging myself, but whatever. Nature of the beast. Years later now, actually getting to work on Progressive, I mean, it's an honor and a privilege to get to do it and to be entrusted with a character like Jinyu and playing opposite Kari, who's so good and so talented and so delightful and such a wonderful human being. And working with Stephanie as well, since she was on the original season, I was just my Mimi, just NBD. Oh yeah, nothing. It's interesting. I didn't quite get to this because we had to play the blooper reel, but the thing that's so interesting to me about Progressive is that I'm almost able to articulate it better now, watching Progressive and saying, yeah, this is something that baby Allegra would have felt. Like, yes, this is something I would have been really self-conscious about. Yes, this is something that, like, maybe not exactly the way that I would have gone through this thing, but certainly parallel to what I would have been feeling at the time. I don't know if it's, by virtue of being older now and being able to really reflect on it differently, as opposed to the very visceral reaction I had to the first Fooly Cooly. But I think if people are still sitting and watching it and saying, yes, this feels like me, or it felt like me, depending on how old they are now, then it's doing what it needs to do. And if it's making people laugh in the process, then yeah, it's Fooly Cooly, right?
To follow up, so do you feel that Fooly Cooly 2 is telling a really good story of like the female mind of like going through puberty and like all these kind of angst? Because that's something that I'm sure a lot of people were kind of weary about, knowing how male dominated a lot of entertainment stuff is. So I'm curious if you feel that Fooly Cooly 2 is showing that kind of mindset, at least for a young woman going through that now.
Certainly part of it. I mean, I think Xanthi, who's the voice of Hitomi, said it really, was able to articulate it really nicely on the panel that for her, Hitomi represented a lot of her feelings of self-isolation, and that wasn't necessarily what I was experiencing at the time. So in that respect, that wasn't me. But in other respects, the way that she approached, like, her particular awkwardness when it came to approaching her feelings, what's going on with Ide, and her general, like, awkwardness in life was very close to me. And I think, no one goes through puberty the exact same way. I think that even in Naota's situation, like, not every young boy going through puberty is going to go through puberty the same way that Naota did, or have the exact same experiences, and likewise the same for Hitomi. So I think if it's reflecting, it'll resonate sufficiently, or it'll resonate extremely, depending on who you are as a person and what you are going through. For me, I would say I sort of like the weird opposite problem of Hitomi, where everyone really wants to hang out with Hitomi, but Hitomi's like, nope, I don't really want to people, so I'm just going to close myself off to the world. That's like your thing, right? Where for me, it was more like, hi, I'm really awkward and no one wants to be my friend. Yay! So that's definitely different, but yeah, no, it feels good.
Sketch, would you be your friend?
Absolutely.
I don't know. Maybe 15-year-old Allegra sucked. Maybe?
I doubt it, but so I want to ask, knowing we all know by now that Raharu and Jinyu are two parts of the same person, the original Haruko. So I don't know. I kind of feel like maybe Jinyu is the sensibility and none of the charisma, and Haruko is like all of the conniving and all of the charisma. Is it?
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. It's for me, and this is, I mean, I knew walking in that she was half of Haruko, so
That's actually good.
yeah, that would have been nice. Yeah, it was part of the audition. Like, by the way, this is a half of Haruko, so I was like, okay, yeah, so I know what kind of contrast I'm going to be playing in all of this. Yeah, I think she is it's like the super ego and the id to. Like, so Haruha is the id, Jinyu's the super ego, and Haruko that we see again in episode 5 is very much the ego. Like, that is just her. So seeing those components come together, the sort of cold rationale, but with slight, she cares. She just doesn't necessarily know how to articulate her caring. She's just very weird and kind of awkward about it. Versus Haruha, who is very charismatic and manipulative, and frankly scary. Like, what was so interesting was seeing how much more violent she was, and how she just sort of controlled Ide and controlled Ide's body, as opposed to when you see her again in episode 5, seeing the way that she like gets people to do things without physically like smacking the shit out of them to do so. It's that, and by the way, props again to Kari for being able to straddle that line so beautifully and show, the difference between Haruha and Haruko. I think it was a combination of the writing, the animation, and the performance. I think you could definitely see the shift, and you could definitely see the moment where she becomes the character we knew again. So yeah, Haruha is scary. Haruha is a wrecking ball essentially, and she will mow down anything in her path to get what she wants. Where Haruko is a little bit more. I don't want to say delicate about it because I don't think there's anything delicate about Haruko. and likewise, there's nothing delicate about Jinyu either. Both of them are wrecking balls in their own way. I'm just going to hit you with the car. Oh, sorry, she's alive. Break split in half. So yeah, it's these two very opposite ways of going about the same thing and then merging into one person. I think is super fascinating, and I could speak about that at length, but I won't bore you guys with too much more.
I did a follow-up. Do you mind doing a follow-up with as well, since I had one earlier?
Oh, well, I mean, you keep saying the name, so how do you say the name?
Oh yeah, you want to try me? Haru. Don't at me right now. Don't at me.
She was shamed at the panel. She was very embarrassed.
Hashtag Allegra shaming.
Hashtag Allegra shaming. So they played the first time we recorded episode 2. I could not say haru or haru, I think was the way I said it in the episode. Now I can say it really well. The entire time I felt like I was trying to say it and I couldn't say it and I just kept stumbling over it. So there's this blooper sequence, which hopefully will be online somewhere other than. I hope so because they worked very hard at it, and it's just me going like for about 5 minutes. I want to say there were a good 30 attempts in there, which is embarrassing. So we got.
You talk for a living.
Yeah, right? I speak. Sorry, bumping microphone. I speak for a living. You'd think I'd be better at it.
It's the easiest thing to say.
Yeah, well, in all fairness, but it's like there are 2 words. Just say those 2 words, Allegra. And it's funny because, tongue twisters aside, there's just that one line that you can't get out for some reason. You're like, why is my brain stopping on this? Why am I crashing right now?
That soft R.
Yeah, it's interesting because I speak Italian, so the other tricky thing was there's a difference between the more trill R, double tapped, which is the Italian, versus a single tap, which is the Japanese. So some of the takes, I don't know if any of them made them in. Sometimes I would say haru, but it would be more like haru. And there'd be a little bit too much R in there, which is too sort of romantic, like romance languages like Italian, Spanish, etc. Versus the single tap R. So sometimes I just hear from the other room, from outside of the booth, Maki going too much R, and oh damn it, I thought I got it this time. So yeah.
Before we move on to Hunter x Hunter, are you excited for Fooly Cooly 3?
Yes, I am. I'm really excited for it.
Do you know anything about it? You don't have to spoil, but I mean, do you know kind of stuff going on?
I know some of it. I know a little bit for sure, and I am very excited to watch it. Yeah.
But as we just said, it isn't just Fooly Cooly that you're on. You're also in Chimera Ant in Hunter x Hunter as Zazan.
Yes.
And one thing that I've enjoyed, I know a lot of fans that have talked to me that really enjoy the banter that you and Tom Bauer, who is a friend of mine, who, yes, we're really good buddies from Anime Expo last year, actually, kind of thing. So seeing the banter has been really funny. What's it like, not only obviously working opposite of Tom for that kind of role, just because it was kind of quirky and funny, but just working on such an iconic show like Hunter x Hunter and one of the best arcs in probably shown in history, really.
Yo, so I'd actually never watched Hunter before I auditioned and got in the show. So it's I studied up on it afterwards, and I was like, this is so light and this is so fun. And then, oh my gosh, because I also played Kurt in episode 77, I think, 76, 77, Dead Child, who just shows up for 3 minutes to set the tone of the arc. Because it's, I'm sure most everyone knows, but in case someone didn't watch it, it's, a kid shows up and he's very sweet and he loves his little sister, and then they get eaten. And it's the establishing moment that says, this arc is gonna get dark. That and, oh God, I'm blanking on the character's name, but the ridiculous amount of gunshots for, what is her name?
Oh God, no, that I cried when I first saw it, yeah.
Yeah, that was traumatic. What's the character's name again?
Ponzu.
Yes. Oh my God, that moment was horrifying. terrifying. And I want to say it was in the same. It was in the same.
No, I think you're right. Yeah.
Not the same episode, but the same sort of grouping of episodes. So.
Maybe like within 5 episodes or something.
I would even say lower too.
Yeah. So I remember talking to Tony about it, and him being like, surprisingly, you don't have the most traumatic death in this volume. And I'm like, really? What's more traumatic than a child getting eaten and his hat falling to the floor as he's going? That was horrible. So I'm sorry, I don't even remember the original question anymore
because we got working on the project.
Oh, it was cool. Like this arc has been dark. It's fun. It's funny as well. There were definitely a lot of moments where Zazan is really cool and I'm better than all of you, and then moments where Zazan is actually succumbs to the comedy of it, which is all the stuff with Pike.
Yeah.
Who I didn't realize at the time was voiced by Paul St. Peter. It's hilarious because I've worked with him. He coached me in a dialect at one point later. And I spent the entire time recording that being like, God, his voice is so creepy. It's so creepy. And now I'm like, oh my God, Paul, you did such a great job. Paul, I love you.
Yeah, so that particular Chimera Ant, she created her own domain, and it's a horror show what she does to people.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? Don't you want to be like Zazan to be your queen now? You can be one of her loyal subjects. Hi, everyone. I'm the queen.
You're going to turn out amazing looking, and if you're a man, you will be horrific.
Yeah. Which is just the way I like it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, so it was, that whole sequence, seeing her come back, because she always was too big for her britches, so getting to actually see her be like, no, I'm the queen now, was like, oh, you little shit, you're gonna go down so hard, and the way she goes down in the end is peak delightful.
That might be the first time I've talked with someone who was okay with their character perishing.
Well, one of the other things I worked on recently was Fate Apocrypha, and I walked into that show because it was still actively airing in Japan, and I couldn't actually find much information about the 5th volume of the light novel because it hasn't been translated. So I was very uncertain about how things would actually end, because I try to do a lot of research when I approach an anime. If it's something that it's already out in some capacity, I like to have a general sense of where the character is headed, so I can always keep that in mind. And so I can also answer my own questions rather than wasting time during the session, because I'm a frequent asker, I should say, and I want to know everything. So if I already know the answers to those questions, it's probably for the best. So in that show, I sort of knew. I was like, I know I'm gonna die in that too. It's fate. It's I'm playing a bunch of servants. I bet I'm gonna die. So, I was very sad when my characters died, but at the same time, it was every time I'd go in for a group of episodes, they're like, you're still alive. I'm like, really? All of them are still alive. Really? How is that possible? How are they all still alive? Surely one of them would have died by now. Nope. Made it to the end for some reason, which was great. Yeah, well, and Zazan's death, too, was such a fun moment to play. Because I love going monster. I feel like a lot of times I end up playing roles that are more delicate and feminine and, lower voiced, but very together kind of a thing. So getting to go full, monstrous ragey is always a delightful place to hit as a performer, especially because I do feel like it's less common for women to get to go into those places. So I feel like when it does happen, I want to enjoy it, and I do. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I don't. Do we have anything more to say about Hunter?
Not really. I was actually gonna, if it was to me, I was gonna ask if she wanted to plug a recent project that she was just in, kind of thing, something that you want the fans who, not only it's not just Toonami you're on other places too.
Yeah. Does it have to be just anime or?
No. I literally had a conversation of nothing but Overwatch with Keith Silverstein for an interview. We're Toonami Faithful, so
I love Keith so much. Can I just plug Keith? I love Keith Silverstein. He's one of my favorite people. Okay, for real though. No, I'd say so. Actually, right now at AX, they're I'm showing off a game called Labyrinth of Refrain, Coven of Dusk. I'm the voice of Dronia in that, and it was so much fun to record that game. I mean, what a delightful story and wonderful writing. And we went to some really sort of dark, hard places on that game, and I'm very excited for people to play it. It comes out September 18th.
For what consoles or PC stuff?
See, I think it's Switch and PS4.
I have a Switch. I can get it.
I feel like I should know the answer to that, but for sure the Switch and the PS4, possibly other systems as well. I just don't know anything. Yeah, you're good. Apparently, my girlfriend has a Nintendo Switch, and that's all she plays. So I feel like I need to also hop on the Switch train.
It's fun. It's definitely fun.
I hear really good things about the system. Yeah, so that's one of them. I'm always going to plug Agretzko because it's amazing, and we just got season 2. I have no idea what's going to happen. I hope Puka
comes back.
Puko comes back too. I'm like, I feel like she can just show up and, wreak some havoc again, just have a lot of good time, drink a bit, rip dreams out of your face, just have a good time.
Well, hopefully we also hear you in more anime projects that come on Toonami too. Has to have been such a pleasure getting to hear your voice on such an iconic cartoon block, pretty much.
Yeah, well, especially since I watched it as a kid. I watched Toonami when it first. Well, so remind me, I think Toonami first aired in the afternoons.
Yes. Yeah, weekdays.
Yeah, weekdays in the afternoons. I watched it back then.
You had to run for DBZ, right?
DBZ. I watched Sailor Moon. I watched Voltron. All of those shows. Those were like my 3 shows that I watched all the time. And then it switched to nights, and I watched that. That was when I got introduced to Philly Cooley, Cowboy Bebop. So many great things. And now I'm on it, which is like, what? How did I get to this point in my life?
I think Sketch and I can both agree that hearing you on it has been really a nice breath of fresh air.
Yeah, this has been fantastic. So, if you're familiar with Adult Swim outside of Toonami, are you familiar with Rick and Morty?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Then when Jinyu was in the cement block, the joke is said to
Pickle Rick. Yeah.
Can we have you say as Jinyu, "I'm Pickle Jinyu"?
Oh my god.
Yes. I'm Pickle Jinyu.
Yeah. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. All for you guys, but Allegra, thank you so much for taking the time with us, especially with kind of the crazy origin story of how this even happened.
Yeah. So TLDR, I don't know how to manage my own calendars. I'm a disaster of a human.
We're not going to complain. It was really good. But again, thank you so much for spending the time with us.
Thank you very, very much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. Bye, guys.